Good morning. Welcome to Heritage Hills Baptist Church. As we get started this morning, I think we have a couple quick announcements. See if we can get that slide over. Kelly's baby shower coming right up. I do believe that's next week, so be prepared for that accordingly. Exodus, February 4th, and then looking forward also to our Valentine's banquet in February, which is always a good time. So keep those things in mind as we plan ahead. Mr. Ty, will you go ahead and lead us in a word of prayer this morning?
Holy Father, thank you for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Thank you for this opportunity to come and hear your word and be a part of your service. We ask you to bless it and glorify it.
Let's go ahead and stand as we sing. Start this morning with thy word. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. When I feel afraid and I think I've lost my way, still you're there right beside me. Nothing will I fear as long as you are near. Please be near me to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I will not forget your love for me, and yet my heart forever is wandering. Jesus, be my guide and hold me to your side. I will love you to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And over to Yes, Lord, Yes, 103 for the musicians. Yes, Lord, yes, to your will and to your ways. Yes, Lord, yes, I will trust you and obey. Till your spirit speaks to me, with my whole heart I'll agree, and my answer will be yes, Lord, yes. Yes, Lord, yes, to your will and to your ways. Yes, Lord, yes, I will trust you and obey. When your spirit speaks to me, with my whole heart I'll agree, and my answer will be yes, Lord, yes. Thank you. You may be seated.
All right, good morning, everyone. We'll be saying the verse twice this morning without the words. Romans 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Right. Romans 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? All right, volunteers for this morning, Mr. Brandon Miller.
Romans 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say? Shall we continue in sin that grace may
Mr. Amir?
Number 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein?
Good job. Mr. James?
Romans 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein?
Mrs. James?
Romans 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer there?
Good job. Mr. Lyon?
Romans 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead in sin live any longer therein?
All right. Anyone else ready this morning? Titan?
Romans 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say then?
Shall we?
Shall we? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein?
Good job. All right. Anyone else ready to say it this morning? If not, yes, Miss Mercy?
Romans 6, 1 and 2. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer?
Good job. Anyone else? All right, 5 volunteers for next Sunday. Shayla, Isabel, Ben, Pastor Nathan, and Courtney. All right, thank you guys.
Good morning on a rainy, cold day. All right, so let's do a little study on the Kenites. Okay, which are what? What are they? Tribe. Okay, they're a tribe. Anything more about them? What? They are nomadic. What else are they? What?
Hey, is your mic on?
I don't know. It's on now.
They're descendants of Abraham.
Okay, they're descendants of Abraham. Is there anything else? Are they a tribe by themselves? They're part of the Midianites. Okay? All right, let's roll.
Exodus 18, beginning verse 1. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel his people, and that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back.
Okay, when did he send her back?
After circumcision, what?
Yeah, after she got mad about the circumcision and the angel had grabbed Moses by the throat and she had to do it in order to keep him from killing Moses, because why was Moses being punished for that? What? Okay, but how did he know to do it? Had the law been given yet? Okay, the covenant. Genesis, okay, when God gave the covenant, he said this is the sign of the covenant, so way before the law, circumcision came into being, okay, and was required for any person born or bought into the nation of Israel, okay?
And her 2 sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land, and the name of the other was Eleazar, for the God of my father said he was mine help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses in the wilderness, where he encamped at the Mount of God. And he said,
So what's the Mount of God?
Sinai.
Sinai. All right, go on.
And he said unto Moses, I, thy father-in-law Jethro, am come unto thee, and thy wife, and her 2 sons with her. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did obeisance, and kissed him. And they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent.
Okay, so do you guys do this when you meet your father-in-law?
Not in that way, but yes.
Okay, not in that way, and some people don't even do that, right? So in the Bible, Artie, you're finding out that when you marry into a family, the father of your bride is supposed to receive what? Respect. Okay? And so we find that these are things that we look at too, and we see this, and so in this way, obviously there's a cultural greeting here, but it doesn't matter what the greeting is in your culture. It's the fact is there's respect there.
And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how the Lord delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro
Now,
said,
pay attention to this, because this is telling you something about Jethro.
Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord, who hath delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians.
Okay, so when you see Lord in all capitals, what did Jethro actually say? Yahweh. Blessed be Yahweh, or for those of you who want the old name, Jehovah. Okay? Blessed be Yahweh, or Jehovah. Okay? And so, in other words, he's using the covenant name for God, which tells you what about Jethro? He knew who God was. All right, go on.
He delivered out of the hand of Pharaoh, and had delivered the people from out of the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came and all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God.
What does that mean? They made a covenant. They made a treaty. Okay? That's what that's telling you. And so when you read this stuff, you have to understand within their culture what that meant. To eat together like that meant that they were making a covenant. Okay? Tribal people, to this day, that happens. When you have tribes come together, somebody comes from outside your tribe, tribal people look at everybody else who's outside their tribe as the enemy. Okay? Unless they're making an alliance with you. And if they're making an alliance with you, then you guys sit down and eat together. Because when you sit down and eat together, you have to put your arms aside. Okay, you understand the implications of what's being said here. So when you sit down to eat bread together, you're putting your weapons aside and you're saying, I trust you. Okay, that's the point here.
And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people. And the people stood by Moses from the morning unto the evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people?
Okay, what does it mean? What does it mean there when it says, and when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he, Moses, did to the people? What was Moses doing to the people? Okay? And he was the one that was in authority that was causing this to happen. Moses' father-in-law is saying, you're responsible because you're the leader. So again, out of this chapter, we find out that whoever the leader is, that's where the responsibility is. So what's happening, whether it's good or bad, is the responsibility of the leader or the leaders. Okay? All right.
Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all people stand by thee from morning unto even? And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people came unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws.
Okay, has the law been given yet? Well, apparently some of it has been, because Moses can't teach them what he doesn't know. Right? But it hasn't been written down yet. At least we don't know that it's been written down yet. Okay, so we haven't got to the spot yet where it starts talking about Moses doing all the writing.
And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, The thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that they mayest bring the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and thou shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure. And all the people shall also go to their place in peace.
Okay, so very interesting, because Jethro said to him, if you do this thing and God command you. He's not telling Moses to do this thing and not ask God. He's saying, hey, I'm giving you some counsel here because I'm older and wiser than you are apparently, because you're not doing what you should be doing. All right, so what is the problem of Moses? Okay, why would he do that?
Because he recognized he's appointed of God for that purpose.
Okay, but
His entire life he's identified himself as the deliverer for Israel.
okay.
Doesn't believe that anybody else is capable.
Yeah, he probably hasn't even really sat down to think about this, right? It's just, okay, I tried to do it, it didn't work. Then I didn't want to do it, but God made me do it anyway, so now I'm doing it. And Jethro's looking at him and going, you're crazy, okay? Because here's these people, and they're standing all day long waiting in a court session, right? Waiting as Moses does one case after another. Okay, so you can imagine there's people there wasting their entire day waiting on Moses to get to them. And Jethro's looking at this and going, this is a waste of time. And you're going to wear yourself out. Okay, now, I'm going to tell you something, okay? Way back when I started Maranatha, I always wanted another pastor working with me. Okay? And people would say, well, you really don't need another pastor. Oh, yeah, you do. And the reason you need another pastor is why?
You don't have all the gifts.
I don't have all the gifts. There's more than that. What else? Okay, accountability. What else? What? Okay. Okay.
You'll get burned out real quick.
And because there's a principle in Ecclesiastes that 2 is better than 1 and 3 is better than 2. Okay? And if you actually understand your Bible, what you figure out is, yes, God gifts different people, and he gifted Moses more than any man. Remember, Joshua didn't come close to having the gifts that Moses had, right? And he recognized that, right? Okay. But no matter how many gifts you have, you cannot do it alone. That's the thing. I recognized this a long time ago, because when I would go around and see these American pastors, they're always wore out. They're always discouraged. They're always either leaving the ministry or getting ready to leave the ministry, thinking about moving to another church because hopefully that'll be better over there. Okay? And almost inevitably, they're by themselves. There's no one to share the ministry with. Okay? And they get wore out. Okay? So this whole idea of delegation, of being able to delegate authority, is huge. The problem is, in order to do this, what has to happen? What has to be true of the person delegating? You got to be willing to let go. You have to realize it isn't about you. It never has been about you, and it never will be about you. And if you don't know how to do that, you're not going to delegate. Because you're going to be afraid that if you delegate, the person under you might do it better than what you were doing, and it might take away from your authority because you think your authority resides in you. You haven't come to figure out yet anything that you have, God gave you. Did you understand that? And I'm amazed at the people, even after you teach them that still don't get it. That still are not going to do it because they haven't got that kind of relationship with God. I'm talking about leaders here. I'm talking about pastors who have not got the right relationship with God, and they're absolutely terrified that they're going to lose their authority in a church. They're not going to have the authority that they need to run a church. And so they won't let anybody that's really qualified be with them in leadership. Okay? So what you see is if they do bring a second man in, what kind of man do they bring? Huh? Yeah, somebody that'll just do whatever they tell them to do, and that doesn't threaten them. Somebody that doesn't have gifts enough to threaten them. So how does that benefit the church? It doesn't. It doesn't. That's the whole point. Okay? So when you get into this, and this isn't the only place that you find leadership, but this is one of them. Okay? This is a major passage in the Bible where it's teaching you things about leadership that you need to understand. And this is whether you have a business, this is how you run your family. This is everything, okay? So when you're running your family, how soon do you start teaching your kids to take responsibility? As soon as they can. So what's the matter with this generation? Well, we let them have all of these different electronic gadgets to play games on all the time. So if they're playing make-believe games all the time, what are they doing in the house that's worth what? And the answer is nothing. So who does it fall on to do it? Daddy and mommy, because they go to work and they come home and then they have to do all the work too, because nobody's trained these kids that life is not just some kind of playground where you just do whatever you want to do, but that you're actually pick up the broom and sweep, you actually wash the dishes, you actually put stuff in the washing machine. Okay, that would be, one would think, anybody with limited intelligence would figure that one out. But apparently we don't have limited intelligence, do we? And yet we're arrogant and think we're wise. Now Shiloh is probably 9, and she knows how to do the laundry. She knows how to wash. She knows how to sweep. Fact is, I paid little skeeks to sweep the stairs for me. Okay, because I want to teach her. Yep. You sweep the stairs because Papa doesn't want to do that. Okay, I don't want to do that. I'll let the little rat do it, and then I'll pay her because she's expecting Papa to give her money anyway. But if Papa's going to give her money, she's going to do something for her. Okay, well, not always, but a lot of times. Okay, because if Skeek sees my money laying on the table, she'll come running down. There's money on the table. Can I have it? Okay. Now Shiloh doesn't do that. Okay. But Skeeks is very aggressive and etc. But so one has to teach her responsibility, right? That life is not just a freebie. And if you guys don't get with it, some of you right here sitting and listening to me, we're not talking to the people outside this church, we're talking to you. If you don't start getting with it and start teaching your children to be responsible and do what they're supposed to be doing, you're going to wind up with a mess on your hands. Okay? And then when you go to work, some of you run your own businesses, and, well, I can't delegate because nobody can do it as good as me. So now you're going to limit how far you can get with your company because it's limited to what? What you can do, which is stupid. Okay. So we have to go to the Bible and we learn these principles, and then we're supposed to do what? Apply them, which means we have to change. The reason we haven't applied them already is because we haven't changed yet. We still believe that the world revolves around us, and without us, the world would stop. The sun wouldn't rise tomorrow. Okay? And some of you are so OCD that you think that everything has to be done in a certain way. But let me tell you something. There's an old dictate that says there's more than one way to learn. It doesn't have to be your way. It just matters that it gets done correctly. It doesn't matter if they go the same way you do it. Now, there are things that do matter, and in this church there's things that matter. And when some of these guys were being trained by me, they'll know that what matters and what doesn't matter. How would they know what matters and what doesn't matter? Okay, what matters to me, I'm going to tell them. I want it done this way, and this is why. But if they say, well, I say, go do this job, and I don't tell them anything other than that, what do I expect them to do? Just do it. Okay? Just do it. Now, natural intelligence should tell you, okay, if you're a little child and you're learning to do this, natural intelligence should tell you that you don't sweep the floor before you've wiped off the table. Right? Just natural intelligence should tell you that, although maybe some of you are lacking there too. Okay? Say, Pastor Steve, why are you insulting? I'm just trying to get your attention. Because some of you think you're really smart, and you're just not that smart. You really aren't. Okay? And some of you are really smart, book smart, but you ain't got a lick of common sense. Okay? You ain't got a lick of common sense. And you need help. And there's people that God put in your way to help you. So use them. Be a wise person. All right? So Moses did what? What does that mean? He listened. That means he took what his father-in-law said and did what? Put it into action. It doesn't mean he just heard. A lot of you just hear. That's all you do. He listened. Okay, when we tell a child, listen, we mean what? I want you to take what I'm saying and apply it. Otherwise, you have not listened. You might have heard what I said, but you didn't listen.
And Moses chose able men out of all Israel and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens.
Did it say he looked for the most popular people? Now, what did it say?
Able men.
Able men, those that were qualified to lead other people. It's not about popularity, it's about ability. That's why everybody doesn't sing. Some people don't have the ability. That's why everybody doesn't do the money. Some people don't have you can't even count out $1 worth of change without doing it 3 times. Okay? All right. It's about ability. All right? Roll.
And they judged the people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought on Moses.
Oh, so what does that tell you? There is a place where the buck stops. Okay? And all the hard things come to them. So if we did that in the church, where does the buck stop? With the pastors. Okay? But every small thing can be dealt with deacons and the people that are in leadership over different aspects of the ministry. And they don't need to come in and ask us everything unless there's some problem that they don't see their way clear to how to resolve, and then they can come to us and we'll help them. But if you have to come to me about every little thing, then you don't need to be in leadership. Okay. Somewhere, if you're a leader, there has to be the confidence that I can do this, right? Not overconfidence, but a confidence that you have the ability to lead. Somewhere there has to be within that person that has the confidence and understanding that your ability is limited, right? So when you get to the end of your ability, then what should you do? Well, I'm just going to push on through and do it.
Seek help.
No, seek help. That's what smart, intelligent people do.
And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land.
So was it good for Moses that Jethro came to see him? Yeah. Actually, it was much better the fact that he came and talked to Moses and showed him this than the fact that he brought Zipporah back. Okay, because Zipporah apparently was not in tune with the God of Israel the way that her father was. Okay?
Numbers 22, 1-7. And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on the side of Jordan by Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was sore afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel.
So why is Moab distressed? Who had whooped the people who had whipped the Moabites. Okay? This land they had taken from the Moabites. So the Amorites had come in and they had whooped the Moabites and taken their land. And now Israel's come in and whooped the Amorites. So now the Moabites are worried that the Israelites are going to conquer them also.
And Moab said unto the elders of Midian,
Okay, what does that mean to you? Is Moab the same as Midian? No. So what's going on here? There's an alliance between these people because they all come from Abraham, but somewhere down the history of these two people, they've come together and they have alliances, which means there's intermarriages between them. Okay, because anytime tribal people do alliances, the other thing they do is they intermarry. Because when you intermarry, then your family is involved and then you don't break your treaty. Okay, well, supposedly you don't. Okay? All right, go on.
Now shall this company lick up all that are round about us, as the ox licketh up the grass of the field. Balak the son of Zippor was king of the Moabites at that time. For he sent messengers therefore unto Balaam the son of Beor to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people.
Okay, by the rivers, talking about the river Euphrates. Okay? All right.
Call them, saying, Behold, there is a people come from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they lie over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me to the people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I want that he whom thou blessest, blessed, and he whom thou cursest, cursed.
So does Balaam have a reputation? Okay. He has a reputation that whatever he says happens, right? And so Balak is saying to Balaam, I want you to come and curse these people for me. Now, immediately when you think about that, what should you think about? The Abrahamic covenant in chapter 12. He who blesses you is blessed, and he who curses you is cursed. Okay? So this is like one of the first times after that covenant is put down that you got to see this thing in action here. Okay?
And the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian parted with the reward of divination in their hands, and they came unto Balaam, and spake unto him the words of Balaam.
Numbers 25, 1-8.
Okay, now this is the product of that whole meeting with Balaam. Because remember, Balaam comes and tries a couple of times to curse Israel, and God does what? And this is Numbers 24, 25, 20. He makes him bless him, right? And in fact, the Holy Spirit comes on him and allows him to prophesy about the Messiah, right? All right. So Balaam decides that there's only one way, because he goes back to his land because Balak is mad at him because he's blessed Israel, not cursed him. So he goes back to his land, but then he figures out a way. He figures out a way to get God to curse Israel. And what way would God curse Israel? If they sin, if they start doing idolatry, which is always linked to sexual immorality. So Balaam goes and counsels the Midianites, what you need to do is get the young men to come and cohabit with your young girls and then lead them into sexual or to idolatry as well as sexual immorality. When you do this, God is going to get angry with them and he's going to destroy them. That was what Balaam told them. That's what leads these people to do this. Okay, all right, roll.
Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. And the
Okay, so why would Israel do this? Why would they join with the Moabites and the Edomites, by the way? They're named together there. But why?
It's easier than fighting.
Well, they're not planning on fighting them. God told them in Deuteronomy chapters 1 through 2, you cannot harm the Edomites, the Moabites, or the Ammonites, because they're all descendants of Abraham. You can't take their land. I'm not going to give you as much as 1 footstep of their land. That's what he said. So they're not planning. Now the Moabites are scared of the Israelites, but the Israelites are not scared of the Moabites, and they're not planning to take their land. They never were planning to take their land. By extension, the Midianites either. So these people, because of fear, are going to bring a curse on themselves. So I ask you a question. How many times have you been moved with fear, and then it's been a fear that's not been founded because you were afraid of something that really didn't exist? Okay, these people are afraid of something that isn't true. But fear often causes us to be irrational, doesn't it? All right? It's why you need to work with your children on fear. Remember, children are always afraid of tigers under the bed or something else under the bed. Whatever it is that scares the living daylights out of them. Okay? Rather than just saying, hey, you're stupid, go back to bed, you need to kind of show them that there's nothing under the bed and that these things don't exist inside of houses, but that there are things to fear. Okay? In other words, if they see a raccoon coming at them in the daytime, should they be afraid? Yes, because it's probably rabies, or a fox, or any animal like that that's going to run up to people. Okay. Should they be afraid of a Rottweiler that's running around the neighborhood? Yes. Okay. There are things that you need to teach them, but you don't insulate them. And some of you, particularly some mothers, are so scared, so afraid that they insulate their children, and their children don't grow up normal. They don't learn how to deal with danger. How do you become an adult if you don't know how to deal with danger? And the answer is you're not a very good adult. Okay? You don't rationally know how to deal with something that's dangerous. All right, go.
And the Lord said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun.
What does that mean? Yeah, well, what it really meant, they took the leaders of these people and they hung them up. They killed them and then they hung them up. And then that night they take them down because you didn't leave them overnight. Okay? So if you read other stories, that's what he's actually talking about. He said he said hang up the heads of the people. He's actually talking about the leaders of these people. Okay? I roll.
Now the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye every one of the men that were joined in the Baal.
Okay, to whom much is given. So he says, kill the Israelites who are joined to Baal Peor. Yeah, I already gave you an order. Don't align yourself with idols. Whoever did, kill them. Because we're in the theocratic kingdom, right? And we don't do that here in this church. We don't go kill people that do idolatry. Otherwise, we'd all be dead. Okay? But what we wind up doing is we say, hey, don't do this. If you do, there's consequences.
And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation.
So why are they weeping? For the sin. Okay, there's people there that are weeping for the sin, and this joker doesn't care about sin. Okay?
And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it. He rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand.
What's a javelin? It's a short spear. It's a throwing spear. Okay? So he takes a javelin in his hand. Okay? Now, there are spears that you throw and there are spears that you thrust with. Okay? There are two different kinds. Spears that you throw, okay, would be shorter, lighter, and you would throw them at the enemy. Okay? But the heavier spears you hold in your hand and you walk towards the enemy, and when you get close to hand-to-hand combat, then you spear them in the belly with it. Okay, that's what you do. All right, and so this is the point. He takes a javelin, which is a shorter spear that you throw, and he went and that's what he's using. Okay. All right, go on.
He went after the man of Israel into the tent, and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly, to the flame of the stake and the children of Israel.
So they're in the act of sex when he strikes them and kills both of them with one javelin through the belly. Okay, that's the point. This guy is a godless person. He's a leader of the Simeonites, but Phinehas doesn't care. Phinehas just executes him and the Midianitish princess too, or tribal chief's daughter.
And those that died of the plague were 28,000. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, hath turned my wrath away from the children of Israel, while he was zealous for my sake among them, that I consumed not the children of Israel in my wrath.
Okay, now I don't know if you've noticed this before, but when God went before the Israelites, right, when they went into battle, what would God do? What did God do? How did God help them in the battle?
Cause confusion
Or, okay, he caused confusion, or he sent hornets, or hailstones fell from heaven. So God is always helping Israel when he's on their side. But when he's not on their side, they got Phinehas and some other ones killing the people that do this. God said kill them. But God already has a plague going, this killing the Israelites, because now God's against them. They become his enemy. You get that? All right. What happens to you if God becomes your enemy? You need to understand that. And a lot of people, when they're reading their Bible, they just read their Bible through. They don't stop to consider this stuff, right? The same God who can be your friend can turn around and be your enemy. And he says this many times in his word. Don't mess with me. I'm not your grandpa. Just do what I tell you to do and I will bless you. And if you don't, I'm going to curse you. And it doesn't matter who you are.
Wherefore say, Behold, I give unto him my covenant of peace, and he shall have it, and his seed after him, even the covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous for his God, and made an atonement for the children of Israel.
So there's somebody of Phinehas' relatives that's a believer today somewhere in the world. Because it's an everlasting priesthood. So Phinehas, because he was zealous for God, brought a blessing on himself and on his descendants. So let me ask you a question. Are you bringing a blessing on you and your descendants, or are you bringing a curse? Because you can bring either. And some of you that have made bad mistakes and your children are not walking with God, somewhere you got to admit it's my fault. Or at least partly my fault. It's always the fault of the child too, but it's partly my fault. And I need to accept responsibility before I can repent and ask God to help me to fix things so that my family turns out blessed. But some of you don't want to do that. You want to compromise. You want to make your family okay, even though they're not okay, and God isn't okay with them. He's their enemy. So now that you've made yourself the friend of your family, what have you made yourself? How is God going to help you? He's not. He's not going to help you. Okay, this is a very simple fact. You can just see it over and over again in the Bible, but people, they're very slow to get this. Because we've heard from the time, blood is thicker than But Jesus said no to that. He said, my family are those who hear the word of God and do it, not the people that are the blood with me.
Now the name of the Israelite that was slain, even that was slain with the Midianitish woman, was Zimri, the son of Salu, prince of the chief house among the Simeons. And the name of the Midianitish woman that was slain was Zophar, the daughter of Zophar. He was head over the people of the chief house of Midian. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, vex the Midianites and smite them, for they vex you with their wives, wherewith they have beguiled you in the matter of feud. And in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of the prince of Midian, their sister, which was slain in the day of the plague of fear's sake.
So what does God say to do now? Yeah, have war with the Midianites and kill them. Okay? Again, remember, this is theocratic kingdom. You'll have these people that will come to you and they'll say, well, the God of the Old Testament was a God of vengeance, but the God of the New Testament is a God of love. No. Acts chapter 5, does it sound like love to you where he killed those two? Huh? Is it not the same God as the Old Testament that smoked the two sons of Aaron when they didn't do what they were supposed to do in Leviticus 10? Huh? Yeah, so don't make stupid statements like that. There is no different God in the Old Testament than there is in the New. It's the same God. It's just a different dispensation. And he works differently in different dispensations. So in the Old Testament under the theocratic kingdom, people get dead because he's got a government set up and it's being ruled by his laws. But today we're not under a theocratic kingdom, we're under the church. So in the church we have strict rules, but outside we don't expect pagans and people outside the church to live like we do.
Numbers 31 through 17. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, avenge the children of Israel the Midianites, afterwards shalt thou be gathered unto thy people.
Okay, so the last thing that Moses gets to do before God takes him up on the mountain and he dies is what? Take care of the Midianites. Okay? Get this war going where they're going to be destroyed. All right, go.
And Moses spake unto the people, saying, arm some of yourselves unto the war, and let them go against the Midianites, and avenge the Lord of Midian. Of every tribe of 1,000 throughout all the tribes of Israel shall ye send to the war. So there were delivered out of the thousands of Israel 1,000 of every tribe, 12,000 armed for war. And Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, to the war, with the holy instruments and the trumpets to blow in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all males.
Okay, so what does it mean they took the holy instruments and the trumpets to blow? Remember those silver trumpets that God said, if you blow them, I'll come and help you in a battle? That's what he's talking about. So they took 12,000 against a far greater superior force, and the question is, okay, so why did God get mad at them at Ai when they took a smaller force, but he tells them right here just to take 1,000 from each tribe, which is only 12,000.
In Ai, they went in their own strength.
They went in they didn't ask God. Here, God tells them what to do. Just like Gideon. I mean, there's 32,000 men of Israel when he starts off, and God says, nope. Get them down. Win them all the way down to what? 300. Okay. So you do what God says to do. You say, well, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense to you. Yeah. These people all the time. Well, it doesn't make sense to me. I've been telling people stuff that really makes sense, and they look at me and go, I don't understand. That's because you're not very smart. Okay? Recognize that. Everybody isn't a genius. Neither are all your children, by the way. Okay? We literally might have one genius in the church, and that would be Titan. Okay? Your children are not geniuses. They might be smart, and hopefully they are, because when you get the faster you get children into Sunday school learning the Bible, guess what happens to them? It helps the intelligence level, it really does. Because this child starts thinking how? Well, it's not just biblically, it is, they're thinking how? Huh? Critically. Even unsaved people will tell you that you need to teach people to think critically. What does that mean, to think critically?
Go beyond just what you see.
Okay, what does it mean, to think critically? Huh? Okay, to reason things out. To say, okay, if I am using my knife, and some of you won't let your children use knives, but if they don't use knives, they can't learn how to use a knife, can they? But when I was young, I learned how to think critically and also learned by experience, right? So I knew a knife was sharp, but I was carving something, and I was carving it this way, and it went slap through and hit my thing, cut that thing wide open right there. I could see my knuckle in there. But I was more afraid of stitches than I was of cuts, so I just taped it like that, didn't tell my mom, and went around until it healed back again. Okay? I've been independent since I was really little. Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. After that, guess what I thought about knives? Really careful with knives. Okay? Be careful with knives. Because knives can really hurt you. Okay? And then when I started dealing with guns, my dad taught me to be really careful with guns because guns can kill you. You're probably not going to kill yourself with a knife by being stupid. You're just going to like cut your finger, cut your toes, something like that. But with a gun, you can die. And so some of you, I'm scared of guns. There's people just terrified of guns and they won't have guns in the house because their children. And you have to have your guns locked away. And this is what the government teaches, right? Lock your guns away in a safe so that. What good's it going to do you if a thief comes in the house if your gun's locked in a safe? What are you, stupid? What do you teach your children? What I taught my grandchildren, don't touch my guns. Don't touch my guns. And they don't. And I was taught the same thing. Don't touch those guns. There's a penalty if you do. And they don't touch the guns. And nobody in the Pittman's household yet has shot anybody. For a long way back. Unless we meant to. By that I mean I have shot people with my pellet gun, but I intended to. Okay? All right. I wasn't nice then. Okay? I've become nice now. All right. So we have to understand when we look at this thing, we say, okay, how does God do things? And the answer is, you don't know how God's going to do things because my thoughts are not, and my ways are not your ways. So if it has to make sense to you, did it make sense to Gideon to chew away his army until he only had 300 left? It doesn't make sense at all. Was it actually a pretty smart thing to figure out you didn't need everybody to go to Ai? Yeah, humanly speaking, that was a smart thing to do, right? The trouble with it was what? Didn't go to God and say, hey, is everything okay? Or are our plans good, or do you really want to change the plan? And this is what a lot of you guys do too. You guys, no matter how much we've preached about it, you still do this. You decide you want something, a house or a car, whatever it is, and you just go and you do it. And then you say, well, okay, Lord, and this is what I used to say in Portuguese, pode carimbar. Okay, Lord, you can stamp it now and say you're okay with it. Let me just tell you something. He don't play that game. Okay? You go grab your car or your house or whatever you want to do, go do it your way, and it's going to be a curse on you. How do I know this? Because I did it. Okay, worst car I ever bought. Okay. It was a Mercury Cougar. I loved that car. I saw it sitting on the lot. I wanted that car. My wife said we should pray about it. I said, I'm tired of being a poor. Because I was a Bible college student. Boy, I wished I'd never said anything like that. That car was a curse to me. And then when I got rid of it, it was a blessing to the next person that got it because he didn't have the curse on him. you know. All right.
And they slew the kings of Midian beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi and Rakim and Zur and Hur and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also, the son of Beor, they slew with the sword.
What's Balaam went home, right? The last time you saw him, but he came back again. What did he come back for? He wanted the money. So when Israel caught Balaam, what did they do? They killed him.
And the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle and all their flocks and all their goods. And they burnt all their cities where they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire.
They didn't have castles. This is a King James thing. So if you looked up in your NASB, what does it say? Or your ESV? Huh? They're camps. There you go, because they're nomadic people, okay? They didn't have castles, so the King James people, this tells you the King James is not inspired, okay? You have any intelligence at all, the fact that they translated castles to a people that's nomadic. Do nomadic people have castles? No, that's why they're nomadic. They don't stay in one spot, okay?
And they took all the spoil and all the prey, both of men and beasts and of beasts. And they brought the captives and the prey and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan, near Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle.
Okay, what does wroth mean? Very angry. It's more than just angry. He was very angry. Okay, so what did they do that was wrong? All right, let's go.
And Moses said unto them, have you saved all the women alive?
Okay, that's a
Rhetorical.
rhetorical question. The obvious answer is, there they all are. Okay, all right, go on.
Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him.
Okay. You say, well, that's harsh. No, these women had helped Israel commit the sin. What would have happened if you'd have brought them into the camp and people had married them? They would have led the men into idolatry. What happens when you marry an ungodly woman? What does she do? What does she do? Do you change her or does she change you? She changes you. That's what happens. But there's some men, they don't figure that out until it's too late. That's how many were left, 32,000. How many went to war? 12,000. And they've killed all the men. Okay, and there's still 32,000 women that were virgins that they brought back to the camp of Israel. Okay? All right, let's stop there because I don't, this is going to get into a new, it's still the Kenites, but it's a new subject. So let's stop there. And somebody will have a word of prayer, and then we'll pick this thing back up next Sunday, I reckon.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for the examples we see in Scripture of who you are and how you deal with sin. We thank you for the example of Jethro and pray that you just take these things and apply to our lives. And just bless us as we go from this place. In your son's name.
Good morning, everyone. Very glad to see you all here with us this morning. As we get going, just a couple of different things. First off, Nathan wanted me to remind you again that the ESL class has started, that he's heading up. So that's going to be at 6 p.m. here at the church. So again, if you want to be a part of that English as a second language class, go ahead and be here tonight at 6 p.m. So he's going to continue working through that class. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and let Nathan know, and he will give you answers to go along with your questions. Then also wanted to let you know that there are a couple of other things that are coming up. The teens, they've actually got something that's not on the schedule there. They've got skating, and that's going to be Saturday. Uncle Darrell.
We're going to be moving, we already talked to the teams this morning, we're going to be moving, helping finish up the move to the Millers that morning, so we're going to be here at church around 12 o'clock, 11:30, 12 o'clock, eat lunch, and then go either, someone we're going to clean the house, someone we're going to go on box, depending on what stage we're at and move it at.
All right, so the teens.
And skating from 3:30 to 6.
3:30 to 6. There we go. Okay. So you're going to come here. The teens are going to be here. They're going to help Brandon and Philena with their moves. Some helping, some moving things. So be here at 12. And then the skating will be from 3 till you guys finish up with the skating. So that'll be this Saturday. So parents of teens, go ahead and remember that as well. And then next Sunday is going to be Kelly's baby shower. Again, ladies, that's going to be after the afternoon service. So food will be provided. Again, she's registered at Amazon. It should be a good time of fellowship next Sunday. And then we've got Exodus coming up. So that's going to be on the 4th of February. And then Valentine's Banquet. That's always a great time of fellowship. We'll start around a sign-up sheet for that later. But just so you know that that's going to be coming up as well. Then also, it's a little bit different today, just to remind any of you that might have forgotten. We're going to be finishing up our morning service, and then if you are a part of Sunday school, teaching the kids during the morning service, or teaching the kids during the afternoon service, so if you're part of the kids teaching ministry and Ty's gotten with you and stuff, there's going to be a training session here instead of the afternoon service. Everybody else gets to go home a little early today. So if you are not part of that ministry, you get to leave after this service. If you have a question whether you're part of that ministry, see Ty before you leave today. But go ahead and remember that that will be going on. Yes, Pastor Steve.
Explain what Exodus is for visitors.
All right, Exodus is our first of the month outreach. So we want to be bringing kids in so they can hear the gospel. It starts off usually some games, and then we have a time of song and lesson, and then sometimes more games or craft. Just a good time with the kids, but we really want to give the gospel out during that time. So it's a great time for kids to invite their friends. Again, it's not on a Sunday, it's on a Saturday. First Saturday of the month, but that happens every month. And the time is 9:30 to about 11:30. So if your kid needs to be picked up on the van, then you go ahead and let us know, and we'll make sure that the vans get out there to help pick up the kids on that. But we start at 9:30, and then we go to about 11:30, and we wrap up and clean up, and we leave by about 12. So, all right. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. College and career at the McMillan's house tonight at 6:30. So just hang out playing games. If you've decided that you are a part of that age group, the college and career, then be over at the McMillan's tonight and just have a great time of fun and fellowship. All right. Yes, Kelly.
Ladies, there's a message in the Any and All group. I need your feedback about the ladies trip by next week. We will also have a meeting next week to talk more about the ladies trip. If you have not gotten back this week, please get back to me as soon as possible. Okay?
All right, to repeat it so we can get through the translation booth as well, there is an any and all messenger group that all the ladies of the church should be in or have access to. If you don't have access to that messenger group through Facebook Messenger, please get with Kelly or maybe even Amanda. She might even let you into the group. But make sure that you're into that group. They're starting to plan the ladies' trip in September already, so they're looking for some feedback in that. If you're part of that group and haven't given your feedback yet, just go ahead and do it. Probably not during the service, but don't forget to do that, ladies. And then she wants to have a preliminary meeting about the ladies' trip next week. So, all right. You good back in the translation booth? All right. The thumbs up. Wonderful. Kate, it's been a long time coming, but you've been not here and then not here. Busy. I forget. But she's avoided us singing happy birthday to her for a few weeks. So we're going to go ahead and sing happy birthday to Kate, and I don't see anyone else ratting anyone else out, so congratulations, Kate. You get your name in the song this time. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Woo! Happy birthday to you. Woo! Happy birthday, dear Kate. Happy birthday to you. I've got a note here for the church. It says, "Dear church family, Florence and I would like to thank each of you for your love and support to us. Also, thank you for the gift cards that were given. Love each of you, Pastor O'Neill and Miss Neal." All right, this time, Kevin, why are you sitting all the way back there? You're supposed to be up here. All right, Kevin is going to have a short business meeting with us. service today.
Heavenly Father, we thank you and praise you for the privilege we have to be in council. Thank you so much for the provisions that you provide for us at the church and the way that you bless us. I pray that you just help us now as we worship you and be honored for everything you said today.
Amen. Let's go ahead and stand as we sing My Hope is in the Lord. It's number 336 for the musicians. My hope is in the Lord.
My hope is in the Lord, who gave himself for me and paid the price of all my sin at Calvary. For me he died, for me he lives, and everlasting life and light he freely gives. No merit of my own, his anger to suppress. My only hope is found in Jesus' righteousness. For me he died, for me he lives, and everlasting life and light he freely gives. And now for me he stands before the Father's throne. He shows his wounded hands and names me as his own. For me he died, for me he lives, and everlasting life and light he freely gives. His grace has planned it all, 'tis mine but to believe and recognize his work of love and Christ receive. For me he died, for me he lives, and everlasting life and light he freely gives. You may be seated. We're going to go ahead and have the kids come on up to the front, and we're going to have our children's sermon time.
Little ones to him belong.
loves me, the Bible tells me so. All right, one more time, just a little bit faster. Okay, ready? Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong, they are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me, yes, Jesus loves me, yes, Jesus loves me, the Bible tells me so. Great job, guys.
All right. So, which of you guys knows what I'm going to talk to you about today? Raise your hand and tell me.
I don't know.
You don't know? What do you think? You don't know? Does anyone have a guess? Bex. The Bible? No, I don't even use that. No, I was kidding. But here's the thing. You were wrong, so you have lost, and you're no longer allowed to talk. So I'm not going to talk to you about. I'm going to talk to you about forgiveness today, but not you. You're not allowed to talk anymore. You're not forgiven. I'm going to talk to you about forgiveness today. I'm going to teach you about forgiveness because here's the thing. I am an expert at forgiving people, except you. I'm an expert at forgiving people. Okay, so to demonstrate how good I am at forgiving people, I'm going to give you guys a game to play, but if you break the rules, you're out. Okay? If you come up here and break the rules, you're out. Okay? So just follow along. So I need one volunteer. Malachi. Come on. All right, so Malachi, you are just going to write your name on this notebook. Okay, don't let them see it. Okay, you're going to write your name on this notebook and you're going to pick a marker to do it with, okay? All right, so just pick a marker and write your name. Okay, you made the right color choice. Good job. You're doing good so far. Nope. You're wrong. You broke the rules. Malachi, I'm sorry, but you are kicked out of the game. You're done. You've lost. Okay. How can Malachi get back in the game? What do you think we should do? Should we forgive him? Yes. Should we? Okay, we should forgive. So what would forgiving him look like? Say I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. So let's not go that way. How can we forgive him? I forgive you. I can say I forgive you. Okay, Malachi, I forgive you. Do you want to come try again? Well, I didn't forgive you that much. Sit down. I forgive you. Okay, I forgive you, but you're still not allowed to play the game. Is that fair? Is that forgiveness? Is he forgiven now? No. I told him I forgave him. What do you mean he's not forgiven? I have to let him try again? Okay, Malachi, come on. Okay, well, it was probably rude of me to rip your paper. Come try again. Okay, write your name, pick your marker. We'll let you try again. Now, blue is a good color. Blue wasn't the problem. Just try again. Can I see that? Can I see the marker? No. That wasn't any better. I forgave him and he hurt me again, guys. What have you done? He broke the rules again. Malachi, why did you break the rules?
I didn't.
You didn't? What do you mean you didn't break the rules?
I wrote my name like you said.
Yeah, but you wrote it in the lines. I didn't want you to do that.
You didn't tell me.
I didn't tell you. It's not my fault. It's not my job to tell you the rules. It's your job to follow them, okay? So here's the deal. Okay, give me that. You guys told me to forgive him and look what happened to me. I got hurt again. Go sit down.
Well, he try again.
You want me to let him try again? But he did it wrong twice. You guys are starting to make me feel like I'm the problem, and I don't like that very much. I didn't tell him the rules, but he broke them. Okay. Should I let him try one more time? Should I forgive him? Okay, if I forgive him, what should I do? Let him play. Okay, Malachi, come on. One more time. You got one more shot at this. All right, Malachi, now here's the deal. Don't write in the lines. Use the blue marker. And don't mess up. Don't misspell your name. Malachi, you've taken way too long. This is taking forever. Okay, well, Malachi, that's not very neat. That is very, it's not that neat. Okay, Malachi, go sit down. Now, here's the thing. Did I really forgive Malachi any of those times, or was I trying to hurt him every single time? I was trying to hurt him every single time. You see, sometimes, how many of you have ever had to make up with your sibling? You've gotten in trouble with your sibling and you had to say you're sorry and apologize. Okay, my hand's in the air. Okay. Now here's my favorite. See, I'm a school teacher, and so what I see often is kids have to make up. And so what do? They say, well, hug each other and say you're sorry. And okay, now you tell me you've forgiven them. Does just saying those words mean anything? Not always. Not always. And see, there's a story in the Bible. Jesus tells a parable. There were two men in this parable. One of them owed a king a lot of money. More money than he could ever pay him back. And when the king reviewed his debts and he saw this guy owed him all this money, he said, you know what? This guy could never pay it back, and I'm going to forgive him everything he owes me. So think billions of dollars. I'm going to forgive it all. He's going to get it all back. He's going to be okay. He doesn't owe him any money anymore. Is that forgiveness? He says, you did this thing wrong and you owe me, but I'm going to give it all back to you. Is that forgiveness? Yes? Yeah. Well, that guy that got forgiven all that money, someone else owed him a much smaller sum of money. And so what do you think he did to the guy that owed him money? Yeah, he put him in jail. He had him tied up, beaten, and thrown in prison because he owed him the money. Now, is that forgiveness? No. No, it's not. But you see, we think about, well, I'd never have someone tied up and thrown in jail. But here's the deal, guys. When we say that we've forgiven someone, but we still don't treat them the right way, or we still hold anger in our heart against them, or we're still mean to them, we really haven't forgiven them because we're still holding those wrong things against them. Jesus Christ, when he forgave our sin, doesn't hold anything against us. Jesus died for all of our sins. He paid for all of our sins. And so because Jesus forgave us, he says he expects us to forgive one another. So the next time that someone hurts you or makes you mad or Malachi spells his name wrong, make sure we have a heart of forgiveness and we're not holding anger against each other. That's all I've got for you guys today. You can go get whoever's got a snack for you, you can go get that.
Hola, buenos días. ¿Pueden levantarse, por favor?
Oh, cantadmelas otra vez, bellas palabras de vida. Hallo en ellas mi gozo y luz, bellas palabras de vida. Sí, de luz y vida son sostén y guía. Qué bellas son, bellas palabras de vida. Qué bellas son, bellas palabras de vida. Jesucristo a todos da bellas palabras de vida. Oye su dulce voz mortal, bellas palabras de vida. Bondadoso te salva y al cielo te llama. Qué bellas son, bellas palabras de vida. Qué bellas son, bellas palabras de vida. Grato el cántico sonará, bellas palabras de vida. Tus pecados perdonará, bellas palabras de vida. Solo Cristo redime, vida nueva te ofrece. Qué bellas son, bellas palabras de vida. Qué bellas son, bellas palabras de vida.
Pueden sentarse.
mais calma, sem nada preocupar. Retiro meu olhar de ti, esqueço-me de orar. Mas quando negras nuvens vêm me ameaçar, ansioso levo a voz a ti e ouves meu clamar. Preciso do Senhor. Quando o mar estiver, preciso do Senhor. Quando o vento forte der, vindo provações ou não, quero estar em oração. Preciso do Senhor, sim, preciso. Senhor, eu sou tão fraco, sem minha proteção. Sem ti não posso eu cantar, pois és minha canção. E sei por meu orgulho, confio só em mim. Ensina-me humilde a depender de ti. Preciso do Senhor. Quando o mar calmo estiver, preciso do Senhor. Quando o vento forte der, vindo provações ou não, quero estar em oração. Preciso do Senhor, sim, preciso.
Okay, that's probably the language you're going to be using when you sing in heaven, just so you know, okay? All right. Not that I'm biased or anything. All right. Let's roll.
Luke 23:13. And Pilate, when he called together the chief priests and rulers of the people, said unto them, Ye have brought this man unto me as one that perverteth the people. And behold, I having examined him before you, have found no fault in this man touching those things whereof ye accuse him.
Okay, so based on Pilate's own words then, was Jesus guilty? Okay. And you need to remember that because the prophecy in the Old Testament says that he wasn't guilty of anything, right? So when Jesus comes, he's fulfilling prophecy. Every aspect of from the time that he was born all the way through to the time that he died and rose again is all covered in prophecy, every single bit of it, okay? And so when you look at this thing, you're saying, okay, these guys come and they communicate that he is a disturber of the people. He's creating problems. Okay, was he creating problems? No. He was creating problems for the high priest because why? They were corrupt. And he was creating problems for them. He was creating problems for the Pharisees because they were legalistic. In other words, they believed that by their good works, by doing good works, they were going to get to heaven. Okay? Does the Bible ever teach, Old Testament or New, that it's good works that get you to heaven? No. Okay, it's very clear in Isaiah 64 that good works don't get you to heaven. In fact, they're a stench in the nostril of God. It's worse than smelling a skunk. How many of you have ever gone down the road and somebody ran over a skunk and you rode by that place and you can smell it because it comes in the air of your car and you can smell it for the next half a mile? Huh? Yeah. All right, so this is kind of the thing. So we got to remember, good works don't save us. That's what the Pharisees were doing. So they didn't like him, right? The people like him, but they like him why? Okay, he heals them, okay, and he gives them bread, free food, and he heals them. So do people like you if you give them free things? Yeah, for right now. But the same people who like him right now are going to do what in a little bit? They're going to say crucify. So for you to be popular in public opinion doesn't mean anything, okay? And you should learn that very quickly if you don't know that for you to be somebody that the public is saying, hey, this is a good person, we really like this person, they can turn on you on a dime.
No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him, for of necessity he must release one of them at the feast.
Okay? So he says, hey, and he had this habit of letting somebody go at the feast there okay? And so he says, I'm just going to chastise him, means I'm going to have him beaten and then let him go. Okay? Why? Because I found nothing wrong with him, and neither did Herod, both of them appointed by Rome. Okay, so he doesn't answer the accusations of the chief priests and the rulers. Why?
His answers would not have changed the situation nor their mind.
Okay, wouldn't have changed the situation or their mind, and is going to fulfill prophecy. Okay? So there's no real point in saying anything to them because it's just going to get into this verbal battle, right? There's no point. And you guys need to understand that, okay? Let me explain to you, when you have a secular job, and all of you know that you're supposed to witness for the Lord, right? So there are people who believe that witnessing for the Lord means that they have to go and they have to grab a person and say, if you died today, would you go to heaven? Or some such thing. But you don't need to do that. If you actually understand your Bible, can a person get saved except the Holy Spirit of God is working with them? So what do? Well, any intelligent person who's a believer will pray and say to the Lord, Lord, help me to be willing to open my mouth and speak to somebody who you lead me to that I know that you're working with. And then what happens is a lot of times these people will come to you, as they've come to me in the past. They used to call me preacher where I worked, I don't know why. Preacher, what does the Bible say about this? And Bob Thompson was telling me this morning that one of his directors, he didn't even know the guy knew his name, called him and said, can I use you sometime if I need you? As a reverend, okay? And then they ask him how something got done. Well, Bob, just go ahead and tell everybody so that I'm going to use you as an example. You didn't know I was going to do this, but anyway. All right, get a microphone. Here you go. Hurry up, Andrew. You're not that old.
We had an event.
Got to turn it up.
That necessitated having interpreters for different language groups here in the city. And I had to find for languages that I don't have contacts with. Arabic, Kareni, Bashti, Dari. Spanish I already had covered, but I didn't know where to go. I said, Lord, I have to have them. I don't know what to do. I need your help. And on Tuesday, the day before the event, I had people calling me saying, I have somebody who speaks this language. Could you use them tomorrow? I said, yes. You don't know, but you're an answer to prayer. And by the end of the day, we had all of our interpreters in place, and we were ready to go on Wednesday. Afterwards, some of my colleagues there in the department were asking me, how did you make that happen? We've never been able to do that before. I said, because I asked my God to answer and help, and he did. And they just sat back and paid attention, and they've come starting asking questions about the Bible now.
Okay, very good. And my wife, same thing. She's at work. She doesn't go around and grab people and say things to them. But they know who she is. They know. And so whenever they have a question from the Bible, they always come to her. Now, there's other Christians there, but they don't go to them. They go to her because they know she knows the Bible. Okay? And so when your life backs up what you say you believe, then people are going to come to you. When they come to you, then you can open your mouth and proclaim Christ. But when you just go out cold and try to grab somebody and talk to them, what you do is make them angry or make them mad or make them scared of you, and they think you're some kind of weirdo and they don't want to stay. They don't want to get close to you. Okay? So quit being weird. Okay? And let God do the work. And you just be the mouthpiece for when God wants you to talk instead of trying to figure out and do it yourself. Okay? Capiche? All right. So God sent a dream to Pilate's wife to alert Pilate that Jesus was somebody that he needed to not get involved with as far as judging him. So was Pilate guilty in judging Jesus? Absolutely. Because God sent him special revelation. Okay? Now, was Pilate as guilty as the chief priest? No. Okay? So you need to remember that. And God always remembers these things, and God says, to whom much is given, much is required. The more you know, the more judgment you get. Okay?
Now, at that feast, the governor would want to release unto the people a prisoner whom they would. And they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas.
Okay, so he's commonly, every feast once a year, the governor lets somebody go. He gives them a pardon. Okay, they still do that today. Do we not have people that leave office? They give out pardons. Governors and the president does it. Okay?
And they cried out at once, saying, away with this man and release him as Barabbas.
Now, the Bible is going to tell you who this Barabbas is. He's not a nice guy. But they want to take the Son of God, who has no sin, and they want to crucify him and let a murderer and a rabble-rouser go free. That tells you what's in the human heart.
Matthew 27:20-21. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas to destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said unto them, whether of good flame would ye that I would release unto you? They said, Barabbas.
Okay, so the chief priests and the elders, remember I told you that's going to be more than 100 and some people, are running through the crowd telling them that they should ask for what? Okay, now, if you didn't have Matthew, you wouldn't know that just from Luke, but these guys are going through the crowd, incentivizing the crowd to ask for Barabbas.
Before a certain sedition made in the city and for murder was cast in prison.
Okay, sedition means he was going against the Roman government. Okay? So it's amazing that they are willing to let him go free. Okay?
Verse 15:7, and there was one named Barabbas, who was laid bound with them that had made insurrection who had committed murder in the insurrection.
Okay, so the insurrection, not January 6th. Okay, that wasn't an insurrection. An insurrection is when you take arms and you go and you kill people. Okay? Nobody died except for one of the people that supposedly the insurrectionist, a woman who was shot by a police officer in the supposed insurrection. But the liberals are good at grabbing words and using them out of context. And if you're not a very smart, critical thinker, you will accept what they're telling you without thinking about it. See, the Bible's telling you that in an insurrection, what happens? People die. Okay? People die. Now, you need to fundamentally understand that this was not a good person, and because of him, somebody had already been killed, at least one. And in these kind of insurrections in those days, many people got killed because they got the crowd riled up, and then they would start taking their short swords and stabbing people. Okay, particularly Roman soldiers, if they could get close enough to get underneath their armor. Okay, that's what they would do. All right, go.
John 18:40, then cried they all again, saying, not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber.
Okay, on top of being a murderer, he's also a robber, which meant he's not a good, his lifestyle's already somebody that's like Antifa. Okay, you understand that? I'm trying to put this in common terms so that you guys can understand. We're dealing with a person who's an anarchist. He doesn't like the Romans, but he also doesn't like his own community because he's robbing from them. Okay, you guys are understanding? Am I making it clear to you how this thing is? Okay, because sometimes when we read something that happened 2,000 years ago, unless it's brought to something that happens to us, we don't really understand it.
Acts 3:14, but she denied the Holy One and the just and desired a murderer to be granted unto you.
So when Peter's preaching, he tells these people, this is after the Lord's risen again, gone to heaven, and Pentecost has happened. He said, you, talking about the Jewish people, you denied the Holy One, that is the Christ, and the just, and desired that a murderer be granted unto you. Okay, so he's reminding them that it was their choice. Okay, so the person screaming the loudest got their way. Why? And he is a politician. You gotta love politicians. Even the Republican ones are basically scumbags. Okay? Okay, you don't trust a politician. What does a politician do? He looks out for his own interests first, and then his party. And the people that voted him into office, when does he look out for them? Okay. So when you have to pick, you pick the lesser of two evils. They're both evil. Just pick the lesser of two evils, the one that's going to do the less damage to you. The Democrats will always increase your taxes. The Republicans might. Okay, so I took this verse that happened actually earlier in this process that we're talking about, but I wanted you to understand that they're behind the scenes covertly causing things to happen. So like in January 6th, it's almost absolutely certain that the FBI had people there provoking those people to go into the Capitol building. They actually have names of people, but they've covered them up and they're trying to protect them so that they don't have to come out. If the Republicans have any kind of courage at all, they're going to force these people to come forward and testify. Okay? Almost certainly they were there. There were provocateurs there. Okay? That means people who were provoking other people to do something they normally would not have done. Okay, now you ask yourself a question. Why would the Democrats want these people to storm the Capitol? So it looks bad on Trump. That's why. Okay? So the whole thing was a plan. So was this. So was this. Nothing's changed. Humans are the same as they always were. Politics is just as dirty as it's ever been.
Jesus realized this and told Pilate what was recorded in John 19:11.
Okay? Jesus realized everything that was happening, and he told Pilate, basically, I'm going to tell you I'm innocent, but you're not going to let me go free.
John 19:11-12. Jesus answered, Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Therefore he that delivered me unto thee is the greater sin. And from henceforth Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, saying, You let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. Whoever maketh himself king speaketh against Caesar.
And Pilate's going, holy cow, if this gets back to Caesar, that this guy claimed to be a king, might not check this thing out. He might just tell me to commit suicide. This is what Caesar did. If you were Roman, he'd send a message to you, and he would just say, you can either commit suicide or I'll kill your whole family. Okay? Now, if you know World War II history, there was a guy named Rommel. Okay? He was a German general. And he was called the Desert Fox because he fought our forces and the English forces in North Africa. Right? Then he was called back to Europe, and he was called to fortress the whole European coastline from all the way from Spain down to France and across and up into Germany against an Allied invasion that they knew was going to come. Now, Rommel allegedly was involved in the plot, that plot that they blew the bomb up. Remember that Hitler, allegedly he's involved in that. And his name comes up, and Hitler calls him and tells him, you have to commit suicide or I'm going to get your whole family. So Rommel commits suicide, and they give him an estate. They give him a huge funeral, Hitler does, because he doesn't want the people to know because Rommel's really popular. Right? So Rommel's really popular, so that's what they do. Pilate's afraid of Caesar because Caesars are not known to be critical thinkers. Okay? They find out, they just hear that somebody's against them, they decide what? Kill him. It's better to kill him and be sure than leave any doubt. Okay? So Pilate's really afraid of this. All Roman rulers were afraid of this because you could get a letter from Rome, and if Caesar was not happy with you, it was all she wrote. Okay? So Pilate's really afraid of this. And so the Jews are saying to him, he says to Jesus, why don't you answer me? Don't you know I could let you go? And Jesus said, you don't have any power over me except what God allows you to have. Okay? And he knew he wasn't going to be let go.
Luke 23, 24, and 25. And Pilate gave the sentence that it should be as they required. And he released unto them him that for sedition and murder cast into prison, whom they had desired. But he delivered Jesus to their will.
What does that mean? What was their will? Crucified. Okay, now you ask yourself a question. Why would the Jews want another Jew to be crucified? Is that a Jewish way of death or is that a Roman way of death? So why would the Jews want another Jew to be crucified? What? Well, they got the Romans ruling over them, but why wouldn't they stone him? That's the traditional way the Jews put people to. What? And because there's a prophecy in Deuteronomy that said, cursed is every man that is hanged on a tree. And in Galatians, he said he took the curse for all of us on himself. That's why. So God had to bring the Romans in, and the Romans had a type of crucifixion that was going to match up with the prophecy, which they didn't even have at the time of the prophecy, to make sure that Jesus, see, they would kill the person first and then hang him on a tree. But Jesus, they're going to hang up live on a tree because the Romans did that because as long as you had enough breath, because the problem with that is suffocation, if you're hanging down, you can't breathe, so you have to lift yourself up. That's why they put the nail through your foot. It was to increase the pressure so that you could do that. It would increase the pain for you, but you couldn't breathe without lifting yourself up. Relieving the tension, you'd breathe, and then you'd slump back down again. And, And so people could live, depending on how strong they were, up to 3 days. Okay, which is why Pilate is so astonished when Jesus is dead on the evening of the first day. Because most men don't die that quickly. Okay, scourge is a very strong word. What he means was he was beaten with a cat of nine tails. Okay? Now what that means is it's a whip with a bunch of little things, and they put bone and lead and stuff like that on the very tips of them, so that when they hit you, it tore off hunks of flesh. Okay? And you would begin bleeding, and literally, according to the Romans, bones would be showing on your back where they had ripped the muscle off until the bones. Okay? And this is one of the reasons that Jesus couldn't carry his own cross, because he had been beaten so badly between what happened to him with the Jews, then what happened to him at Pilate, what happened to him at Herod's, and then back at Pilate again. Okay? So he couldn't carry his own cross, and they had to get that other guy to come carry the cross for him, the guy from Cyrene. Okay? Now, I want you to think, because I think about this every time. There's coming a day when they're back before this king, except he won't have a crown of thorns on his head and he won't have a reed in his hand. He's going to be the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And they are going to bow the knee again. But it won't be mocking this time. It'll be in holy terror of what's going to happen to them when this king pronounces a sentence on them. Okay? All right, this is what I like to look when I think about this, because this can actually make you angry when you think about the injustice of everything that happened here. But by the time you start getting angry, you need to remember that if it wasn't for your sins, he wouldn't have been there at all. Right? All right, roll.
They spit upon him and took the reed and smote him on the head. And after that they had mocked him, they took the robe off from him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to crucify him. But as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross.
Okay? So there's two other thieves, but apparently they were okay to carry their own crosses. Why? Because they didn't care about them. They didn't beat them this way. They just take them, put them on a cross, and let them die. And these guys weren't dead. When the soldiers came to them, they were still alive, so they took the buttress of their spear, turned it around, and smacked them across the shin bones and broke them. Okay? So when you break the bones, what happens? Now you can't lift yourself up anymore, and you suffocate immediately. And that's what happened to those two guys. Okay? But when they come to Jesus, they found that he was already dead, and one of them, to verify that, turned the spear around, poked the spear through his side, and the plasma had already separated from the platelets. Okay, that's why it says blood and water came out. It was talking about plasma. Okay?
Mark 15:15. And so Pilate, willing to condemn the people, released Barabbas unto them, delivered Jesus, and he scourged him to the crucifix.
There's a politician. Willing to what? Make the people content. Rome did this for a long time. People in Rome would get ready to riot, they would give them bread, give them free circuses, give them free everything. Sound like America to you? Give away free stuff until what? Until you can't afford to do it anymore. Then what happens? So Rome actually fell from the inside. The barbarians came and conquered Rome, but they could have never conquered Rome if Rome had not fallen from the inside first. Okay? Same thing's going to happen to this country.
Thenceforth, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, saying, "Now let this man go, if thou art not Caesar's friend. Who shall make himself a king, speak against thee?" When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus forth, and sat down in the judgment seat, in the place that is called the Pavement, but in Hebrew the Baptist. It was the preparation of the Passover, about the 6th hour, and he saith unto the Jews, Behold your king. But they cried out, Away with him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, Shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, We have no king but Caesar.
Say what? We have no king but what? Did the Jews like the Romans? They hated Jesus more than they hated the Romans. Isn't that amazing?
As they led him away, they laid hold upon one Simon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Jesus.
And 27:32. And as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross.
No, you will have people say, see, they got a black man to bear the cross. He wasn't black. He was a Jewish person that lived in North Africa. Okay? That's why he's at the feast. Jews came for the feast from all over the world. Now what happens is this man does become a believer, and so does his sons, and you'll find them in the book of Acts later. Okay? And so when you come to this thing, you ask yourself a question: why was this guy there? And the answer was because he was a Jew from North Africa, and he was there to, okay. In the 1970s, when I was in high school in Ivory Coast, West Africa, we had some Jewish people and some Lebanese and some people also from North Africa who were diplomats who went to school with me. They went to the English school. Now, in those days, if you remember, there was a lot of people that were doing what with airlines? Hijacking. Okay? So what happened was Jews would not fly straight north across North Africa or Egypt. They wouldn't go that way. They would go all the way around, so that if the plane came down, it wouldn't come down in enemy's land. Okay? What was interesting was to find out that before the 60s, some of those people had grown up in North Africa. They were Jews. There were still Jews in the 60s in North Africa living and making a living in North Africa in a Muslim country. By the way, when we went into Iraq, most of the Jews had been killed because Saddam Hussein killed them, but there was a bunch of Jews still living in what was old Babylonia. They were still there. Thousands of years since they were taken there by Nebuchadnezzar, and they were still there. The Jewish cemetery is still there. Okay? So Jews have been literally, like the Bible said, been scattered to the four winds of the earth. They literally live everywhere.
Mark 15:21, they compel one Simon, a Cyrenian, to pass by, coming out of the country. The father of Alexander, a group of bear his cross.
Now, Marcus just says the father of Alexander. He's using first names. Why would he only use first names? Because everybody knew who they were. Okay, everybody knew who they were.
He bearing his cross went forth into a place called the place of the skull, which is called in the Hebrew the Walk.
Okay, now the Bible says he's going to suffer outside the gate. He's not going to die inside Jerusalem. He's going to die outside. Yeah, we already told you that, so it's all good.
There followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented. But Jesus, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. Behold, the days are coming, in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, the wombs that never bear, and the paps that never give son.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, okay? I want you to start burning your gray cells. What year did Jesus die? What year did Jesus die? Huh? Okay, well, how do you know he was born in 5 or 6 BC? Which means he's born before Christ, so somebody got something wrong. Because Herod was still the king that tried to kill Jesus, and he died in 4 BC, and we know that for a fact. So Jesus was born before he was born. Okay? But really what happened was, You had a monk got it wrong in the Middle Ages, and he was off by about 6 years. Okay? All right, go on. Explain the rest of it. No, you got to speak up, buddy. Come on. You're supposed to be a teacher. Let's go.
If you add 33 years to that, you're not going to get 33 because that'll be adding 39 years to it. So, okay, just 6 plus 30, so that puts us at 8, would be about 26. Add 3 more years to that, about 29 or 30 AD.
Okay. So if it's 29 or 30, what year did this happen that Jesus said, weep for yourselves? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you're right, 26 or 27. So what year did this happen? It's not hard. 70 AD. So how many years is the difference between 26 and 70? So there have been people alive who are still there. Now, let me tell you what Josephus said happened. Josephus said when the Romans came in, they took all the Jewish leaders, okay, this would be all those Pharisees, all the Sadducees, all those people, and they crucified them for 5 miles on every road outside of Jerusalem. Okay? Josephus said that the city literally was blood running down the streets. Okay? So the Jews were, when the walls got breached by Titus, the Jews withdrew into the temple precincts and fortified the temple against the Roman soldiers, who finally breached the temple. And when they did, Titus had given strict orders not to burn the temple, but somebody threw a torch. And when they did, the linen that's in the temple, if you know anything about linen, all you have to do is touch a flame to it and it just goes up. The linen caught fire and the whole temple burned down. All the gold and the silver and everything that was in that temple melted and ran down between the joints of those stones, because remember, all the stones have no mortar, right? So all the silver and gold went down through. When the soldiers went back into, after the temple cooled down, they went back in there with pry bars, and they literally took all those stones off of each other to get the gold and silver out. So what Jesus has said before, that there will not be one stone upon another, literally came to pass. The Romans took every single one of them down to the last foundation stone to be able to get all the gold and silver that was melted in there. And they made a law that Jews could not live in Jerusalem for the next 200 years. There was no Jews living in Jerusalem. And what Jews survived, they sold into slavery. There were not many that survived, because the Romans were very angry that they had to be in the siege against Jerusalem for so many years. Okay? Now, why is it that woe to them that are with child, that are pregnant, and woe to them that have babies, little babies? Because you can't run. Remember Mephibosheth? Why was he lame? The nurse was running and dropped him. Okay, you're supposed to be careful with babies, but when soldiers are chasing you, it's hard to be careful. What people? Israel, the Jewish people. All right, go on.
They shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive from all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Okay, so this happened in 70, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. Okay? Now, we won't be here when it happens, but it's going to happen again. Sure as God made little green apples. Okay? All right, let's stop there, because this is going to go into a little more than I want to get into right now, being that we're at the end of our time. All right, so somebody pray this morning. Let's not wait till the cows come home to pray, okay? Somebody that happens to be walking with the Lord can stand up and pray. Thank you.
children.